Yep. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. We were going to talk a little bit about Creo Distributed Batch and how we can use that to make our lives a little bit easier in Creo. Okay, so I've created a few slides. It's about 2 or 3 slides, so we're going to work through them, and then we'll jump into Creo Distributed Batch and Creo as well, and then we'll take it from there. So just a short agenda about what we'll be discussing today. Then a little bit about myself. So my name is Pierre Venter. I'm a boundary systems technical specialist, working with PTC products since about 2008. And each engineer at Boundary System have a few specialty areas. So mine falls in Creo manufacturing, smart assembly, and top-down design. Okay, so a little bit more about Boundary Systems. So we are part of the PDSVision group of companies. So as you can see on the map there, we had a few offices around the world. Okay, so some of our capabilities, so help our customers with product lifecycle management, data management, CAD, design and consulting, with simulation within Creo, and also product development. So just some of our accreditations. So we are PTC Platinum Partner. We also Windchill Certified Implementers and preferred service providers for PTC. And then we also provide training for Creo, Windchill, mapkey, and ModelCHECK. So just a quick slide about some of the solutions we offer. I think the main ones here are the PTC stuff, but we also do Keyshot, CMaxim, ModelCHECK 3D, and ZWCAD, just to name a few. Okay, so let's jump into Creo Distributed Batch. So Creo Distributed Batch is a small program that you can install with your Creo installation, and it's an interface or program that can help you to run different tasks on a large number of files. So I'm going to use the distributed batch interface today, and we're going to use it locally on my machine. And I'm just going to pick a few files, and then I'm going to export them as DWG files or DXF files, or I can even export them as IGES files or step files and things like that. So if you have a large number of files you have to translate or have something done to them, then Creo Distributed Batch is your answer. So what's nice about this is you can run it in the background. So you can start it up, select the files, sort of minimize it, and Creo and Distributed Batch is going to run in the background, completing all those tasks for you. Okay, so you can also schedule this. So obviously it can be resource intensive on your machine, so you can schedule it to run after hours. So it's going to start up at a specific time, and then it's going to start that processing. With the DSM manager, you can also use different machines. So you can set up a distributed manager, and that's sort of going to use resources on other machines on the network. Okay, so I'm working standalone today. I'm not part of a network, so I can't set that really up to show you. But in essence, it's exactly the same. It's just the manager is going to allocate tasks to different machines. Okay. For today's exercise, I'm only going to do it locally. Okay, so where do you set all of this up? So the first thing you need to create is a batch file. So the batch file is that untitled you see in the screenshot here. So, and in that you're going to have specific tasks. So if we look at this example, I'm going to do a DWG2D import of certain sheets, and then I'm going to do an IGES 2D export of those sheets that's currently. So that's just a very simple example. But imagine you have to do 300 drawings, or even 50 drawings is a pain. So you can set this up to grab those 50 drawings, import them as DWG files, and then export them as IGES files. Okay. Just by using the Creo Distributed Batch, and you can carry on doing important work like designing products and things like that, while all of this is happening in the background. Okay, then just a little bit of background information on how this needs to set up and how you can manipulate that. So distributed batch will use these TDD files, right, which is basically an XML file. I'll open one up for you so you can see how it's constructed. So you're going to pick this. This is going to be your task, and you can see Creo has a few options that you can choose from. So these are default. It's in your installation folder. You can grab them and then just run them on certain products. So I'll show you how to do that in distributed batch. Okay, then just quickly something about our training. So the training that we offer is virtual training due to COVID restrictions. We also do in center, so we sort of have a center where you're coming to, or we can do it on site. Okay, so if there's any training requirement, just give us a shout, and you can do that by either emailing me on bcenter@boundarysystems.com, or you can get in contact with sales, and they will allocate the right person regarding training. Okay, so let's jump into distributed batch first. So that's Creo. So that's just one of the sample parts that we'll be using today. So I guess the first important step is, so by default, distributed batch will be installed with Creo Parametric. So as soon as you install that, sometimes if the systems administrators don't realize, but they have options of what things they can install when they're installing Creo. So this is just the setup that I've pre-started. So if you don't see an icon on your desktop for distributed services, then you'll need to go and create that icon. And that's just a batch file that's starting up in the bin folder for Creo Parametric. Okay? So if you don't have that icon and you're having issues setting that up, just drop us a mail and we'll help you with that. Okay, so I just quickly wanted to show you that it's part of the installation. So I'm just going to cancel my installation. And then I've created a few icons just to start that up. So you can see. So it's in my bin folder, and there's the PTC and batch file that it starts up with. So you can set that if you want to. So let's go ahead and fire that up. Okay, so this is the default window that you should see when you fire up distributed batch. And you can see there's a few things. You can create a new one. You can open up a batch file. So if you created the batch file for translating Creo drawings to DWG or to DXF drawings, you can just save that and you can reuse it. Okay, so normal new open functionality. So today we're going to do it just from scratch. Okay, so I already have a new one open. Under the Edit tab, you have Preferences. So what's your default manager that you'll use? So if you have a manager set up on another machine, then this is where you'll be able to see that. So like I've mentioned before, we're just going to use it in standalone mode. Yeah. You can also use it in Windchill. Okay, so one of the exercises today will be in Windchill. So I'll show you how to do that as well. Okay, so I'm going to leave my preferences as default for now. I'm just going to cancel that. Then under the tasks, so as soon as you pick a new task, excuse me, then you will be able to go and select those TDD files. So these are all the things that you can do. So you can export 3D access files. You can do DWG files. You can do DXF files. So these are all defaults in distributed batch that you can do. It's also all part of the default installation folder. Okay, so let's quickly go to that installation folder. So I've created a shortcut for that as well. You'll be able to see the path in here. So if you need to go and change any of these TDD files, you can just simply open them up in any Word editor. So I use Notepad++. So let's open up the mapkey one. That's the one that I've sort of modified for today as well. And you can see there's some of the things that it's going to run. So this is the mapkey that we're going to use, and then depending on the TDD file that you open, you'll have certain options. So this one was set not to save models by default, so that's false. So I had to change that to true for to save the file after you've run a mapkey on it. Okay, so mapkey functionality also a big part of this. So if you have a specific task that you want to do in Creo, then you'll use the mapkey functionality. Okay. With that mapkey, just while we're talking about this, those mapkeys need to be saved in a config file as well. Okay, so a config file is just a file that Creo uses when it's started up with specific settings and things like that. So you can see mine. It's got a few settings that are sort of customized for my Creo environment. Okay, so that's the TDD file. So let's go and do something in Distributed Batch. So the first exercise that I wanted to do, I'm going to cancel this. I just want to set up my Windchill server first. So I'll already have that. It's set to no service. So I have, just going to activate this. Let's see. So I'm going to set that as primary server. And I already have an active workspace. Okay, and just to show you that workspace in my Windchill environment, there it is. Okay, so let's say for this exercise, I need to take some of these files and I need to export them to a neutral format. Okay, so what we need to see in here is these parts being created as new parts in my workspace. Okay, so I'm not in Creo. This is Windchill. Okay, so that's my active now. So let's go and create that new task. So you can either go to actions here at the top, or you can right click and say new. Okay. So what do you prefer? And let's export that as neutral file. So that's a Creo neutral file. So that's a file that you can open up in any version of Creo. So if you have a project that you've saved in Creo 8 and you need to share that with somebody else that's using Creo 7, then neutral files in Creo is the answer. So you can export that. So you don't always have to use step file, IDES files, and like that. Okay. So if we go to our objects, so under our objects, we need to select them. So you're going to be able to browse. You can see I'm picking files from my workspace. So I'm just going to do 2 files. It seems like my connection isn't that great with the webinar going, so I'm not going to overload this. But you can see you can pick a whole bunch of it. So I'm just using normal shift. So if 2 files here or 50 files here is exactly the same, I'll pick all of them and then I'll just save them. So I'm just going to control down and pick those 2. So that's going to be in my object list. So it's also telling me where it's grabbing it. So you can see that's from Windchill. Then if I have specific configuration files, so let's say, for instance, you're doing DWG files and you have specific line widths and things like that that you've specified in a config.pro file, then you can use that, okay, in here as well. Okay. So that example we'll use when I run the mapkey example. So for now, we don't need any configuration. I'm going to say output, and I'm going to say save into Windchill. Yep, that should be all that I'm setting. and I'm going to say I'm going to run this standalone mode. Just want to double check this. Yep, okay. And that should be fine. So I'm going to right click here and say start, or I can go to action and say start all sequences. So I'm just going to say start. And you'll notice that it's going to show a progress bar. I like this window where you can see sort of what file it's working with. So it's doing the first one, the clutch body part now. And then it's working with that. So what's basically happening now in the background, Creo is firing up and it's creating that neutral file. So it's going like the save as and doing all of that for you. So in an ideal scenario, you'll have a lot of files in here. You'll minimize this and you will carry on with Creo doing your normal product development. Okay. So there's a file, I'm working with that. I can carry on. All of this is working in the background. Okay, so just give that a second or two. So this is sort of it is dependent on your connection to Windchill. So obviously if there's something wrong with that connection, then that's going to be an issue. If it's a little bit slow like mine today, that might also be an issue. What the ideal scenario, you'll have this running in the background. So if it takes a little bit longer than normal, it shouldn't affect your day-to-day work. Okay, so I'm going to give this a few more minutes or seconds. Should be starting with the second one by now. So obviously my upload speed to Windchill is not that great. Yeah, okay. So yeah, I have a problem with the connection to Windchill. It's a little bit slower than normal, so I'm going to stop this. Yeah, so I'm going to stop that, and then I'm just going to show it in standalone mode. It's exactly the same theory. The only difference is it's going to save it to your workspace and not to a local drive. Okay, so let's delete this, and let's just do a normal one. Okay, so I'm going to take my server management. And I'm just going to set that as primary. So I'm out of Windchill now. So this will sort of let me run it local on my laptop. Okay, so the first thing you'll do is you're going to go new action again, and you're going to pick what needs to happen. So let's do a DWG export for some drawings. So you'll notice that it's not going to my workspace now. It's going to my default folder. So I just quickly need to go to where my target is saved. And I'm just going to grab those drawings. Right, I should have drawings. Let me just quickly. You see, I moved my drawings. Just quickly move them back. Done a quick test. Let's go to the. Okay, that should be fine now. So I'm going to grab the clutch shoe, left and right. I'm going to open that up. Again, I don't need any configuration files. I'm going to say, well, I want to specify a drawing where I want to put these DWG files, and I'm going to smack them into my startup folder. Let me set that to standalone, and I'm going to start that. Okay, so same scenario. It's going to show me what it's working, and then this should go a little bit quicker than the Windchill ones. What we can do is we can go to that folder in the meantime. So you'll see that is completed now. So if we go to our start folder, we should have some DWG files that was just created. Okay. So quick and easy to go and redo that. Okay, so that's an example, but it doesn't matter what file types you use. Any of these, if you create a new task, any of these, that workflow that I've just showed you, that would be your workflow. If you go neutral files, if you save it as IGES files or step files, you just go pick it up here and then you run that. Okay, so the last one that I want to show you is a little bit more complicated and a little bit more versatile because we're using mapkeys to drive or to make changes to a component. So I'm going to open up Creo quickly. I'm just going to delete this one quickly. Then we're going to start that from scratch. So I want to show you in Creo first because you need to set this up a little bit different. So I'm going to use the clutch body as an example. Then we're going to go to our map key. So I've predefined this. Let me find that key. Oh, it's on my second screen. Let me just drag it over quickly. Yeah, so there's my map key. So I've renamed my map key AZ. Okay. So what this will basically do is it will go and create a view for me. Let's say you have a certain orientation that's not company standard, but you need it for a specific product or for a specific data pack. Then this is a scenario where you can use that. And then you'll set up a drawing template, and it's going to use this new view that's on a different angle to these specific products. Okay. So you'll notice that I don't have any other funny views in here. It's just the standard stuff. Okay. Okay. I see I already have another one there. Okay, so let's open up another component that doesn't have that. Okay, so you can see on the orientation, there's nothing special in here. Okay, so now we're going to use this one and we're going to run it on this lecture. It's going to create that orientation for us. Okay. So let's go use distributed batch for that. So I'm going to say action, new task. And I'm going to select my map key. The same scenario, you go select your objects. So for map keys, you can pick anything. Remember when I've run that DWG export, I could only pick drawings. So it will sort of limit you in what you can choose, depending on the TDD file that you're using. So I'm just going to do the two shoes, left and right. So now I have to pick a config file, and that config file needs that map key saved into it. Okay. So let's quickly go. I'm going to pick it first. And then I'm going to show you in my editor. You can see I have map keys specified in this config.profile. So in my TDD file, I've got the AZ that it needs to use, and in my config.profile, I'm sort of telling that TDD file to go look in the config.profile and use that AZ map key. So you see it over here. Okay, so that needs to tie up. You need to tell that map key TDD file which one. So you can make a copy of this and you can rename just this section, because that's the line that tells it to go and grab the map key in that config.profile. So you can have save a copy of this map key and rename it to something else, and then just reuse it for different tasks. Obviously, then you will save that as a batch file and you can reuse it whenever you need that. Okay. So that's the reason why we have to specify that config file, because that's where it's going to get the map key information from. Then the output, I'm going to specify this. So it's going to save that into a new folder. I'm going to save it to my startup folder. Okay, so now I just quickly have to test this. No, okay, there's no Creo parts in there now, so that's fine. So I'm going to put it in the start folder. I'm going to select our standalone manager. I'm going to start our task. Again, we're going to wait for that. So while we're maybe waiting for that, so there's two things in map keys that you have to understand when you use it like this. You have to select default things in Creo. Because this is starting up in the background, obviously you can't type in information. This map keys needs to be specified in such a way that Creo doesn't need to be open, or it doesn't need any input from a user to create that. So just keep that in mind when you create your map keys. So I just quickly want to check. Oh, there, it's working now. So maybe while this is running in the background, maybe I can take a minute or so and explain to you a little bit about the licensing. So the way that I'm using it now is the free version. You don't need any licensing. Standalone is free with Creo. When you start using the distributed manager and you start splitting up the tasks between machines, then there's a specific license that you need for distributed batch. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If you're seeing certain things that like the manager and things like that, that's something that you need a license for. Okay, so let's go look at the start, and you'll notice that I've got two new parts in there, the shoe left and shoe right. Okay, and that parts will be now new. They would have to change. So this is maybe something now that you go and upload to Windchill or save to a specific project folder. Okay, let me just quickly have a scan through my notes here and see if I've covered everything. Yep, I think that's what I wanted to show today. The workflow is very straightforward, nothing really to it. So I'm going to mute myself for a minute or so, and then I'm going to give you the opportunity to ask some questions. Then I'll answer them right now. If I can't, then I'll get somebody involved, like PTC or or maybe some of the colleagues to answer those questions, and I'll reach out via emails on a later stage, or maybe even a phone call. Okay, so I'm going to mute and get those questions in if you have any. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar for today. Thank you for joining us today, and hope to see you soon. Thank you.